One of my favorite ways to improve mental clarity is by forest bathing. This is a Japanese practice that has been around for centuries where people would immerse themselves in the forest, kind of like a sensory deprivation tank, but with trees and fresh air. And what they found is that this can actually help reduce your cortisol levels and increase your mood, boost your ability to concentrate and be creative, while at the same time calming your nervous system down. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how you can use forest bathing to improve your mental clarity. And I want to read a few studies that really show how this works and why it can be so effective. The first study is called Shinrin Yoku, which means forest bathing in Japanese. It is an old tradition of taking in the forest atmosphere in a healing and preventive way. This is from the University of Minnesota, and it was done in 2015. And they say here that forest bathing is thought to have a variety of health benefits, including reduced concentrations of cortisol, lower blood pressure, and improved immune function. They go on to explain in the introduction that in Japan, Shinrin Yoku is offered as a therapeutic treatment in some hospitals and nursing homes, and I personally know some people who have done this. In fact, there are some great documentaries that you can watch on Netflix about forest bathing and its healing effects. But these researchers were interested in the effects of forest bathing on stress and attention. They had two groups of people, one that went out into the forest and another that stayed inside. And they measured their cortisol levels before and after this experience. And what they found was that the group that spent time in the forest had significantly less cortisol than the group that stayed inside. So that's a great thing if you're feeling stressed out. Go for a walk in the woods. This next research study is called Psychological and Physiological Effects of Forest Bathing, and it goes through a lot of the benefits that spending time in a forest can do for you, and they specifically talk about how it can affect your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that's responsible for decision-making, attention, social behavior, language, and memory. This study explains that the human race co-evolved with forests, and therefore our bodies, minds, and spirits are inherently connected with forests. They go on to explain here that recent studies suggest that psychological stress activates the noradrenergic and the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal systems, which is basically fight or flight. And they say that forest bathing may reduce stress by counteracting the effects of sympathetic activation, which is exactly what we found in that first study when they checked the cortisol levels, the stress hormone. In this study, they had two groups of men, one that had high mental stress and the other one was a control group. And they took them out into the forest and they found that after spending time in the forest, there were significant decreases in blood pressure and heart rate and increased natural killer cell activity, which is an indicator of a stronger immune system. These researchers also found that there was an increase in EEG alpha wave activity, which is associated with an alert, relaxed state, which I think a lot of us are looking for, especially those of us who are creatives and we want to be able to concentrate, focus, and be productive. They go on to explain that in general, our lives have become more comfortable with many conveniences, but at the same time, modern life involves heavy workloads and intense competition. They say that people are now reevaluating what is important in life and are seeking new ways to relax and reduce stress. And I think we all know that work will always be there, but we won't always be young and healthy. So it's important to take the time to recharge and find things that bring us joy. The researchers concluded in this study that forest bathing may be a powerful therapeutic tool for reducing stress and improving overall health. They say that further research should investigate the neural mechanisms underlying these effects because clearly there are changes happening in your brain when you spend time in the forest. Now, I don't know about you, but I love the outdoors. I love hiking and being in nature. And so for me, this is not even hard. Like I look forward to getting out into the forest and just being outside. I actually find that when I am inside for too long, that's when I start to feel anxious or depressed or just off my game. And so when I feel that way, I know it's time for me to get outside and go for a walk or go for a hike. This last study is called The Health Benefits of Spending Time in Green Spaces and Urban Forests, and it talks about how exposure to green spaces, urban forests, and other natural environments can lead to improvements in physical and mental health, which we've already established. But they also go on to say that these environments offer a sense of place and community belonging, and that cultural and historical associations with green spaces can enhance their meaning and value to people's lives. And what they mean by that is that when you go somewhere like a park, for example, if you live in the city and you go to that park every day for a walk, you start to connect with that space. You might see the same people there, and you might start to feel like this is your place. Maybe you'll sit on the same bench, and over time you'll start to create memories there. And that connection with place and community belonging, I think, is something that a lot of us are missing in our lives. We're living in these big cities, and we're disconnected from each other. We're disconnected from the land. And when you're disconnected from the land, you're disconnected from yourself. And so the solution is to find places in your community that you can connect with. That could be a park, it could be a beach, it could be a forest. I'm going to leave links to all 3 of these studies below if you want to check them out. I also want to talk about how you can practice forest bathing, because I think most of us can't just take a day off and go and stay in a forest, although that would be amazing. So what I like to do is I like to go for walks. In fact, I'm working on a video right now about the benefits of walking. And if you're interested in that, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that content. But I like to go for walks in the forest or in a park near me, and I try to do it at least once a week. I usually put on some headphones and I listen to music or a podcast, but sometimes I just sit there and I'm present, and I listen to the birds and I look around me and I try to connect with the environment. One thing that I like to do that I learned from Wim Hof is that I'll do some deep breathing exercises. In fact, let me show you right now. What I like to do is I'll lay back on the grass and I'll do about 30 to 60 deep belly breaths where I'm fully present and I'm looking up at the trees and I'm trying to connect with my environment. And it's just a simple breathing exercise where you inhale and then you exhale. And what that does is it starts to calm your nervous system down and it starts to lower your blood pressure and it just relaxes your body. So if you want to try that right now, go ahead and do it. Lay back on the grass, close your eyes and just start to breathe deeply and try to count to 60 and just do that breathing exercise. You can do it longer, you can do it shorter, but I like to shoot for about 60 breaths, and I think you'll notice that you start to calm down and you'll feel more relaxed. If you like this video, you're going to want to check out this video on 7 ways to boost your creativity immediately, and I will see you there.